Here we go.
Welcome back. Follow and DM me on Twitter if you want to be in the next episode. When you send the artwork on Twitter, make sure not to scale it up. Send the original file size so that way I can work on it. Whoa, look at this awesome submission, right? It might be hard to improve this artwork because it's already so good, but I think I got a couple of tips. So for the pirate here, I noticed that the treasure chest has these two colors, and obviously they're different, and when you're zoomed up close you can tell they're different. But when you zoom out, they start to kind of blend together. So be careful, even if you have different colors, if they're a similar like brightness, they can start to blend. So actually what I would do is I would make sure that there's more contrast between these colors. So here what I'm doing is I'm making the brown brighter, and already look at the preview. In the preview it's already way more obvious where those lines are on the chest. And then see how dark this is? I would probably make this this lighter as well. And I know that you wanted to like shade the edges or something with the different shades of brown, but sometimes adding detail doesn't actually make the artwork look better, it just makes it look messier. So if you do want to add details or contrast, be more minimal with it, because it's really important to actually kind of portray an idea than it is to add unnecessary details in the art. And I see like this right here is supposed to be like a glare, but I can't tell why this pixel is darker, and I can't tell why this pixel is darker, right? So I would go simpler, and what I mean by that is I would basically make this entire thing gray, and then if you put a dark spot just here and here, now it looks like there's little like locks there or something, or like a piece holding it down. Or you could do the opposite, where now if you want to have a glare, you could put a glare there, and they become more meaningful. Or you could just put like a glare in the center, and then the focus is more on the glare. So basically what I'm saying is I'm noticing that you're in a way you're adding too many details, which makes it harder to understand what's going on. For example, up here it looks like you have a glare, right here there's like a glare, but then why is this section so dark? So I would simplify it, man. It might just be my style or whatever, but what I would do is I would make this all one color and then add one highlight in one location. I do think though that for there to be a highlight in just one spot on the chest is a little odd. What I would do is I would pick more like a corner. So for example, if I was to do a highlight for this chest, I would actually pick this corner, this edge right here, and what I would do is I would blend that edge. I think you have a similar problem with the boot. The boot is great, the shading on it is great. However, I do think the shading here is so smooth that there's almost not enough contrast in this boot. I would make this color here darker, and if we look at the preview, watch when I hit Control Z, you can see how these two colors almost look the same in the preview. And Control Z and Control Y go back and forward. So if I hit Control Y now, you can see that contrast is much higher, and I think that in this case the contrast is important because you're trying to show a crease here in the boot. So you know, whatever, just increase contrast. Same with here. I think this spot in your artwork needs to be a little bit darker, that and that. All right, let's move on to the next piece. This guy is looking pretty cool, totally looks like a villain. I love the chair, how it's almost like an octopus or whatever, squid, I'm not sure what's what. A few things that I would do maybe to enhance this is I noticed that you have blue here and blue here in the eyes. Something kind of cool to do if you have two of the same pixel for like eyes or whatever is make one of them a little bit brighter. So maybe that one or this one could be a little bit brighter. Same with the eye here. I would make one of these a little bit brighter. For the eye here, I would even maybe add like yellow or black. I don't know. Both of these being the exact same shade of blue, I think is a little bit odd. I would make one a little bit darker or brighter. I think it might look a little bit better. That's not whatever, but whatever. That's not really a big deal. And then for the squid, I noticed you only used 2 colors, and it's cool if you limit colors, but the rest of your artwork has a ton of other colors. So I think it's odd for this squid to only have 2 colors. So for example, I feel like you missed an opportunity to highlight parts of it by having a lighter color. So for example, here and here, maybe the total top of this could be highlighted. I probably didn't pick the perfect color, but the point is I feel like you could have highlighted parts of this, especially things like if you want these suckers or whatever they're called on the squid to stand out more, it should probably be a different color. Look at that preview. It looks pretty cool to have those a different color. And then maybe in here as well, you could do a little highlight on there. I feel like that was a missed opportunity for you to add an extra color into that just to make it look a little bit cooler. The shading on this clothing is awesome, but you don't have enough contrast. So this bright color here, I would make it even brighter. So I'm gonna go brighter, and then I'm going to pick the paint bucket tool. And now if I have contiguous up here, if I have contiguous off, then anywhere that color is in the artwork, even without it touching, it's going to change. You see that? Changed for the whole artwork. I'll do it again. And now we can see that highlight much more clearly. I think that it's important to have contrast. And now that I've highlighted that and it's more obvious, it does look though like the highlight down here is too much. So for example, the highlight here is great, but for this part, I do think that it should probably be the color that you had before. That this highlight color isn't appropriate for every single part that you had it. So right there, I do think it needs to actually get a little bit darker. If you think this pixel art software is really cool, there's a link in the description. Please use that. I get a tiny little kickback. This zombie pirate is awesome. Oh, I accidentally left a couple of the red dots up there, whatever. Those weren't there. I'll just erase them. Let's pretend that wasn't there. Okay, for this, I don't really get why there's blue in the mouth. Maybe I would probably remove it just because a person can't tell what that is, right? So in your imagination, you know what it is. It's not super clear whether that's like a blue light coming out of the mouth or not. So I would maybe remove that blue. I love the colors for this. The colors are fantastic. However, the pants and the coat, they're very similar in color, and it might be kind of hard to differentiate between the two, which is why I noticed you put this really dark line here to separate those two. But you don't need to put this really dark outline. I would just probably make the color of these pants a little bit different. Maybe hue shift. So for example, maybe hue shift the top one a little more towards blue and hue shift the bottom one a little bit more towards green, and then just hue shifting them a tiny bit will make a huge difference. So let's pick this color here. Well, actually, let me see this one. This one right here is near blue. So this one, I think we can hue shift a little bit towards green. So all I'm going to do is here near the hue, I'm going to go a little bit more left towards the green, and then I'm going to fill this color. And just that hue shift, let me do it even more. Just that hue shift makes those two colors a lot more different now, and it'll be easier to see them. I barely changed anything. We could go, into a much more extreme so I can emphasize this. But there we go. So when you're shading, a way that you can differentiate between different parts of the same object using the same colors is to just use different amounts of them. So for example, if we look here, there's 3 colors here doing a nice gradient transition, and those same 3 colors are used in the arm here. What I would do is I would use a lot more of one color. For example, in this section for the arm, I would use a lot more of this color, and then for this part, I would use a lot more of that color. And I know it looks like I'm not, doing the same amount of shading, and I get that. I would still go back and shade this, but all I'm trying to point out is that make different sections of the body use mostly one of the 3, colors that you're using for that art piece. So for example, this arm would get more light, so it should mostly have, even if you're doing shading, it should still mostly have this brighter color. And since this part is on the chest, it doesn't even need this light color, or if that light color is in there, you need to put very little of it in there. We're still using the same colors to shade. We're just deciding which part is going to have mostly the darker shade and which color is going to have mostly the lighter shade. Don't use the same amount in all the sections. So for example, this arm back here, it has a lot of this dark color on the bottom here, and it makes basically the whole arm look darker. And if we just moved the shading, I'm just moving the shading here and increasing the lighter color, all of a sudden now it's almost, you know, the same exact shading. However, just the amount that I decided to use of each changes how that looks. And for arms and a chest, I would have a little bit more of the brighter shading color. And then near, you know, under the chest and near the corners and crevices like here, that's where I would have a lot more of the darker. Don't try to always use an even amount of all three colors when you're shading. Check out this old man with the soles or something. I love it. The only thing here that I think is an issue is it's difficult to see this arm right here. Let me point it out. This arm right here is a little difficult to see. So I have a quick trick for how to make this arm more visible. And you can do this, you know, in almost anything. So I'm gonna make a new layer. I'm gonna call it shadow, and then I'm just gonna take black, and I'm going to, oops, not that. And I'm going to outline this arm just over here, right? And then I know that that looks bad right now. Just give me a sec. Check this out. We're gonna click the shadow, and we're gonna lower the opacity. And if you look at the preview now, it's much easier to see the arm. You could even do this maybe on both sides of the arm, but it might, oops, but it might not be necessary to do it on both sides. So if I turn the shadow on and off, you can see the huge difference that that makes. So this next one looks like it's a bit of a different style. If these are all in the same project or game or whatever, I would recommend that you stick to the same style. Here, I noticed you actually do have an outline. And with outlines, I think outlines are great, but you don't want to put them, I love outlines if you've ever seen my videos, but I don't think you want to put them everywhere. So for example, there shouldn't be an outline here, right? And there probably shouldn't be an outline there. And I noticed that you know that too, but you do have an outline here. And this outline here it's fine, but if you're trying to make it look like this stomach part is protruding. However, on the head, I don't think that on the head you need the outline there. If anything, you can, you know, shade that section darker, but I don't think you should put an outline on that bottom part of the head. It makes it look more connected. Same with the mouth here. It goes all the way around. I would probably, you know, stop like here, unless you really want it to look like the head was literally cut in half into two pieces. For the shading, I think that you did a pretty darn good job at shading. However, it's kind of odd for the legs to have no shadows on the bottom, unless there's light coming up from the bottom, which it doesn't look like there would be. The lighting's probably coming off of this pink and purple stuff, right? So the bottom here is what would have shading, the bottom of the feet, and I didn't really see that shading here. You can also kind of show different, like for example, if there's a knee here, if there's a knee right here, and that leg bends, at that bend, you can use shading to show where there is a bend. So if there is a bend in this knee, and I mean, it does look like you have a bend, I feel like that's a good spot to stop the shading, to emphasize that here is where the leg bends. And I hope that makes sense, but basically, I would just not shade this top part and only shade like half of the foot, and instead of having a gradient, it's fine to pick like an edge, especially if there's sort of a crease or bend. So for example, the arm here, it doesn't really crease or bend, so I wouldn't try to shade like half of this, you know. So for this awesome half crab guy, I feel like this world is so creative. Each of these characters has so much personality. You're pretty good at designing characters. I like it. But for this crab dude, I think the main thing that I would do that's super obvious with this white background is add a little bit of shading on the edges. You see how the legs here, they're hard to kind of see on a white background. It's good to test your artwork out on multiple backgrounds, and all you need to do is, I think, just kind of like what I did with the shadow, you could do with this. I could just go over here with black and create an edge. So just kind of like go around and basically, I don't think you need to do it on both sides. I think at least just do it on one side. And when you do that, it really does just look at the preview. It really does make it a much more obvious where that object is. And I would probably even do it a little bit on the leg here. Even without doing outlines, kind of like pretend like you're using the outline to shade, right? So an outline can basically just be shading, and you don't need to do it on both sides. Like for example, here I could just do this little section right there in the arm, and it's not a full outline, but it creates shading. For this claw here, basically if we were going to add an outline, we would think, where would I add a shadow, right? And the answer would be down here. So I would go here and I would maybe add, this one's actually really complicated, so it's not easy for me to do this. If you're new to my channel, I'm a game developer and I have a free demo of my game on Steam. There's a link in the description. All you need to do is search Dwarf Prologue on Steam. I hope you play it. Please do. Follow and DM me on Twitter and you could be in the next Pixel Art Critiques. I'll see you guys next week. Dev Live.
Bye bye.